We are going to talk about power laws in this video. First of all, let's start by understanding what powers really mean for numbers. So, power is this number that's written at the top right of a given number. So, let's say if I write down 2 to the power of 2, it basically means that you are multiplying 2 times 2. So instead of writing it 2 again and again, this is more like a shorthand form of writing down 2 raised to the power of 2. Now we know what that means. 2 times 2 is going to be equal to 4, right? Similarly, we could have other power, let's say 2 raised to the power of 3. Now again, since 2 raised to the power 2 meant 2 times 2, 2 raised to the power of 3 meant 2 times 2 times 2, which is going to be equal to 8. So in general, if we have a number which is represented by a over here, and we have a power which is represented by n over here, we have to basically take that number at the bottom and keep multiplying it by itself, the equal to the number of times of the power. Okay, that's why 2 raised to the power 3 meant 2 times 2 times 2, and 2 raised to the power 2 meant multiplying 2 by itself twice. Now, there are other laws related to powers which are also important. The three rules that we are going to study is going to be the product rule, the quotient rule, and the power of power rule. Let us first look at product rule. So what product rule tells us is basically that if you have a number with a given power and that number is being multiplied with itself, then you simply have to add the powers together. Let's try out an actual example. So let's say if we have 3 raised to the power of 2 multiplied by 3 raised to the power of 3, notice over here that both numbers have the same number at the bottom, which is 3. The powers, though, are different. What this law means for this kind of question is that you have to be able to add the powers over here. So as a result, you get 2 plus 3, which is going to be equal to 5. Now, these laws don't just apply to numbers, but they can also apply to unknowns, like over here. A raised to the power 2 times a raised to the power of 5. Assuming that a is some unknown number, we can do the same, which is we can just add the powers together, and as a result, we get a raised to the power of 7. That's product rule for you. Now let's move on to the next rule, which is the quotient rule. Over here, what quotient rule tells us is basically that if we take a number with a power and we divide it with the same number but with a different power, or it could be the same power also, then we have to subtract the powers. So we can simplify it by subtracting the powers like this. Notice over here that the power that is given with the number in the numerator comes first, and the power with the number at the denominator comes second. So it's the one that will be subtracted. Now let's try out an actual example. Over here we have 3 raised to the power of 5 divided by 3 raised to the power of 2. This follows exactly the format of this, right? So what do? We write down the base once, just like this a over here. Then we subtract the power at the top, which is m, with the power at the bottom, which is n. So over here, the m is going to be 5. So 5 minus the power at the bottom, which is 2. So 3 raised to the power 5 minus 2, which as a result is going to be 5 minus 2, that's going to be 3, right? Next, again, as I said before, these rules do not just apply on numbers, but also unknowns. So again, if you follow the same rule, we get 8 minus 6 because the 8 is the power at the top, 6 is the power at the bottom, and as a result, we get 8 minus 6, which is 2. The final rule that we are going to go over is the power of power rule, which is this one. This rule tells us that if there's a number with a power on top of it, but then there is a bracket and there's a power outside of the bracket as well, which is given as n over here, then what you need to do is basically just multiply the powers together. So it becomes a raised to the power of m times n. All right. So how do we proceed with this? Well, let's say that we have 2 raised to the power 3, and then outside of the bracket you have a power of 2. What you do according to this rule is basically you just take that both the powers and you multiply them. So this becomes 2 raised to the power of 6. Following the same rule, over here we will get x raised to the power of 8. So these are the three most important rules when it comes to power, the topic of powers.